Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today at Juanette's Crafting Corner for my Slow Stitch Saturday. So, in the last video, we finished my sweet little Miss Fiona and her little beach towel blanket. This is still not attached. I'm going to wait until I have it even on the canvas piece before I attach this. But I asked in the last slow stitch video your suggestions. Do you feel like it's finished? Should I add anything else? And my friend Amy came up with a fantastic suggestion, and I'm going to use it. So thank you, Amy. What I'm going to do is, she said, you need to have your name somewhere on the piece. So I'm going to stitch this up here in this corner there, Juanette's Crafting Corner. And then the date is going to be stitched, I think probably somewhere down here. And what I've decided to do is stitch it with a variegated purple thread. And so what I did is I went on Canva. I found a font I liked. I typed it out, and then I cut it out just to make sure that the size of the lettering and the font was going to be something that I was going to be happy with. And so this was my prototype. Then I took some fabric paper, and this is linked down in the description box. It's for inkjet printing. It is cotton fabric on paper. So you can run this through your printer. And what I did is, before I printed it off on here, I went in and I changed the coloring of the font to a really light gray, so that when I take this purple variegated thread and I thread paint over it, and I'm going to, not thread paint, I'm going to use, I believe, a back stitch. And so I don't want the lettering to show through. I only want the thread to show through. And then let me show you something else that I did. I'll bring you in a little bit, or a little bit closer. I'm not completely done here, but I started doing a little bit of canther stitching, which is almost like a quilting stitch. But I did some running this way, and then some running up and down. I feel like as I look at it, it needs to be tighter. So I'm going to come in here. It's just with a plain crew thread. I'm going to come in here and add more. So it's definitely more tightly stitched in the background around Miss Fiona and her blanket. Let me go over to my craft desk, and I'm going to show you how we're going to start stitching this. Once you print your image off on your cotton sheet, your inkjet printing sheet, then what you need to do next is peel off the backing. This backing is paper, and I'm not sure how it would be to stitch through it. So let's just peel this off. But then we still want it to be stable. So let me show you. Yeah. So see, this is quite thin cotton fabric. So we can get rid of that. But now we need to add something on here to make it more stable. And that product is Heat and Bond. This is the Ultra Hold one. I really like it. I need to order some more. I need to go on Amazon and find it. But there is a paper side and then there is a sticky side. So what you want to do is lay the sticky side to the back of your fabric. Then what I do is I sandwich it in between two pieces of parchment paper, because this sticky part, if it gets on your iron, it's a pain to get off. So since I haven't cut it exactly yet, exactly the dimensions of my cotton fabric, I need to protect my iron. So I'm going to go over and iron these two together. Here is how I sandwiched it in between two pieces of parchment paper. And now I need to pull this off. And you see how the parchment paper, the Heat and Bond has stuck to the parchment paper. I'll come in here and separate this out, and then I will trim it down. Sorry for that crinkly noise. Pull this off. We're going to trim this down anyway. Get rid of this parchment. And then over here to my right, I'm going to take this to my paper trimmer and trim this off around the edges and neaten that up. And then I'm going to take it back to my iron and iron it down better. Now, if you notice here, I think my ink from my printer, it got on the edge here, this fabric, but that's okay. I'm going to cut that back a little bit. Okay, so now all of that is trimmed around here. So now I'm going to take it back to my iron again because it's a little bit crinkly here, like it didn't get pressed down well, and I'm going to iron it a little bit more. Okay, so that is ironed up there. I'm going to kind of neaten this up a little bit. Now there is paper now on the back of it, but now we're going to remove the paper from this, and what we will be left with is a stiffer fabric to stitch through. Let's see if I can find the end. There we go. Okay. So now I'm peeling off the fabric, and you see how this is now stiffer. There's a little, you can almost tell, I don't know, you probably can't in the camera, but there's a little bit of a backing on it now, and we can throw this piece of paper away. And so now it is thicker to stitch through. It just makes it easier. I'm going to start off by putting my fabric in a hoop. A hoop helps keep the tension tight, and your stitches will look a lot better. I have it in a hoop, and what I've done is taken only 3 strands. So I'm going to start back here. And the reason I'm only doing 3 strands is because this thin area here, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to make it thick through there. So a back stitch is very simple. You're going to just bring 1 stitch in first, and then you're going to come up a little ways from it, and then go back down just before the previous stitch. And then we're going to go there, and then back down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where I'm just going to skip over this part right here, because I don't want to stitch there, because I'm going to be stitching this as double. And if I stitch in here and then over there, it might make it too thick looking. So I'm going to jump over and start on the outside of that J. I don't remember this heat and bond feeling so plasticky, but it definitely is plasticky feeling. It won't matter when it's on the piece, because that plastic part is on the back side of it, this other side. So previously in the video, I wrote down that I was going to be changing the interfacing. You remember me mentioning that I don't recall the interfacing being plasticky, and it was very difficult to stitch through. So I ended up changing the interfacing. And what had happened is up here in this area on the previous one, I ended up pricking my finger, and I got blood on it. This was the previous one. And so I ended up reprinting it and putting different interfacing on the back of it. This is the one I switched to, this easy to use, fusible, non-woven interfacing from Staple Sewing Aids. I've had it for a long time, and so it's easier to stitch through. And so hopefully I won't prick my finger. So one way to make it faster is you go down just after the last stitch, and then you come up just past where your thread ended, and then push your needle through, and then you have another stitch. So again, go down next to where your last stitch was, go past where your thread is a little bit, and bring it through. It's a lot quicker than that stabbing in and out. So yeah, I ended up having to redo the entire thing. Thank goodness I hadn't done a lot of stitching. Okay, so now I need to come over more this way. And so it wasn't bad to start all over again. Now, because this is getting narrow, what I'm going to do is start back and do the stab stitching, because it's difficult for me to see where I need to go. So this will make it easier. So I'm very excited about my new journal that I'm going to be starting. You guys know I talked about the name that I'm going to start calling my journal making series. It's Medieval Mirage Timeless Treasure Tuesdays. So that's going to be fun. I did get a new kit from Jaff printed off. It is from her kit called Antique Letters, Ledgers, and Ladies. And so I have the ephemera printed off, the journal pages printed off, and I'm going to show you in Tuesday's video a new way to organize yourself as you get ready to start a new journal. So now that I've reached that area, now I need to come in and fill all of this area. I can see my camera is a little bit swaying because of the ceiling fan. So now I do know that what you're going to want to do is make sure that you don't bring your stitch even with that stitch. You want the stitch to come kind of in the center of the one next to it, so they're not all lined up in a perfect row. So I'm going to continue doing this and filling this in, and then I will be back with you guys and show you what it looks like. So this is where I'm at now. This was the first one, and just listen to the way this sounds. Doesn't it sound plasticky? And it was very difficult to stitch, and you can hardly see it now, thank goodness, but I got some blood on there. So then I told you I changed the interfacing. and I started stitching on this one. And the stitching was going very well. The needle was going through it easily. And I got to this point. Come on. I got to this point, and the variegated thread to me did not look that good. Come on, autofocus. There. Okay. So you see how that, to me, that does not look that good. So 3 times are a charm. I printed it off a 3rd time. And instead of using a variegated DMC thread, I'm using a solid color. And this is where I'm at right now. And I'm happy. I'm pleased. Because this is going to hang in my craft room, I want it to be perfect to my mind's eye. I want it to really be pleasing to me, to where when I glance over to my left, because that is where it's going to hang, I'm going to be happy with it. So I'm pleased that I started over 3 times. I've got to this part of my name, Juan, and I like the way it looks. I think the stitching is good. So once again, here is a single row of the back stitch. In here, right up there with the J, that is a double row. This is 3 rows on both sides of the U, the A, and the N, and on this side of the E is double, and then down here on the U, a little bit on the A, over here coming up toward the E, and up from the A to the N is all a single row of back stitches. So that's my little lesson today, my Slow Stitch Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me today for Slow Stitch Saturday. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you guys on Tuesday for Medieval Mirage Timeless Treasure Tuesdays. Thanks, and bye-bye.